Welcome to the In Memory of Man podcast, a show dedicated to the brave new world of crime, artificial intelligence, and you. The future is now. Here's your host, criminal trial lawyer, researcher, and author, Robert Kiesling.
Hello, welcome to the Robot Crime Blog podcast. I am your host, Robert Kiesling, criminal trial lawyer out of Austin, Texas. This is episode 3. Purpose of the podcast is to give you, the listener, the 411 on artificial intelligence and how it applies to the criminal justice system. Last time I left y'all, we talked about the Wisconsin versus Loomis case where artificial intelligence was used in sentencing Mr. Loomis to 6 years in prison. Yes, AI sentenced a man to 6 years in prison. If you want to know more about that subject, go ahead and go to Robot Crime Blog. I will have a link to the article articles as well as to the podcast and the vlog. We are going to talk today about robot brothels. Yes, robot brothels, they exist and they are here in the state of Texas. Before we do that, I'd like to get into the news, and here we go. Facebook is doubling down on AI to clean up the social network. Artificial intelligence is now used to predict crime, but is it biased? I think I've proven it is. A warehouse robot learns to sort out the tricky stuff. Patriot player is speaking out after Amazon's facial recognition tech falsely matched him to a mugshot. Wow. World's first brothel staffed entirely by robot sex workers now looking for investors to go global. Interesting stuff. Again, if you want to look at any of those articles in the full, go ahead and go to robotcrimeblog.com. Let me thank my sponsors real quick, bigsmoke.com, and that's Big Smoke with the QUE.com. Also, the law offices of Robert Kiesling, or law offices of RRK, for your family and criminal trial needs. And Discredited Citizen, a novel about a near future that a man is falsely accused of murder who must make an impossible choice. If you want to know more about that, go ahead and go to robotcrimeblog.com. Let's talk about the city of Houston first and how the whole robot brothel thing got going. Well, looks like this company saw some lax law in the zoning ordinance of Houston, which allowed them to operate their sex robot brothel. City of Houston, it was brought to their attention by Elijah Rising, which is an activist group against sex trafficking. They received 15,000 signatures on a petition that said, we do not want this here because we believe it condones sex trafficking. I believe the city council responded and said, okay, well, we're going to go ahead and say, well, they could still be here, and that's my understanding, but that the main portion, which is a customer would go in and test the product, the robot, before buying, and that was the major issue, and so they outlawed or didn't allow that to happen. And just if you're curious, in my research I found how much does one of the robots go for? About 15 grand, which is wild. Again, it goes back to Blade Runner to me, but going off topic a little bit. So the next situation or the next issue I want to discuss is the pros and cons of these alleged sex brothels or sex robots, and it's going to happen by 2030. It's going to be crazy. I don't know, but I'm just presenting this information to you from my research. I'm not advocating one way or the other. I just want to keep the discussion about artificial intelligence and the criminal justice system alive. So the pros, they're saying that it would replace prostitution. They're saying that it could be therapeutic for those that have lascivious intentions above the social norm. I'll just leave that to your imagination. It would mitigate human trafficking, sex trafficking, which again, I'm not saying that it would or it wouldn't. I don't know enough about it. Some of the sociologists said that it would not promote it, but I didn't see anything that said it would stop it from happening, or at least reduce it from happening. I would love to have some comments, questions, any research that you might have that would help me in that subject, and I'd be happy to touch back on that when we know more about it. Also, the pro of companionship, in that for the elderly and the lonely. And then lastly, they're saying that actually the more people that would actually engage in the robot and robot cyber sex, or however you want to say it, or robot sex, that would actually make it more intimate, because nothing will replace the real thing, right? So that's your interpretation for the pros. Now, what do we got for the cons? Well, when I researched it, I didn't find the one con that I thought was extremely important. And I'm not saying it's above all else, but it's definitely something you want to consider, or someone should consider, in all of this craziness. So one is, obviously, we're talking about bias. And if you want to learn about bias, go ahead and go back to the Wisconsin versus Loomis. When I say bias, I'm talking about code bias, because mostly men are doing the coding, and it's going to be biased toward women, which obviously is a huge problem. Also, for those that are going to be using these sex robots, they will probably be in isolation a lot. And if they're in isolation a lot, obviously that's never a good thing. The main issue, it's kind of like Surrogates. I don't know if you've ever heard of that movie, but it's a science fiction movie with Bruce Willis. None of the people ever got out because they were substituting life with the robot surrogates. So I'll leave it at that. Also, they're saying that it could possibly reinforce bad acts, because there's no laws in terms of how or what way these robots would be used in the sexual manner. Again, I'll leave that to y'all. Then there's also the losing the human element, which sociologists say that probably wouldn't happen. But I would say that the more advanced that these robots get, then you would probably lose that human element when the skin gets warmer, when they're almost indistinguishable from humans, like the show. I think it's actually called Humans, anyway. Or Surrogates or something, I can't remember. So that said, my issue that I hadn't seen anywhere in my research is dealing with the fine print. And what I mean by that is, let's say you own this robot, or let's say that there's a robot brothel that someone enters overseas. I think there's one in, there's Italy, but I think they shut that down. And then I think there's one in Spain, maybe. Anyway, so you go in, right, and you got to understand something, that the robot's eyes, right, those aren't human eyes, those are recorders. Then also the robot's voice, and then when you speak to it, that in it there's a recorder. All that information is getting uploaded, right? It's getting uploaded to where? Well, you don't know, but I can tell you this: it's a company, it's a private company, and that information, if there is some kind of fine print when you either walked into that place and you didn't see it, or you went through the fine print like we all do on our iPhones or the updates from Microsoft, you scroll through it and go, boom, I'm done. It says in there that, hey, any data that we get from our robot is ours. Yeah, think about that, any data, and you know what I mean. In addition to that data, they would also have how you talk to the robot, how you interact with it, right? What you say to it, how you say it. All that information is a metadata. And what do I mean by metadata? Well, I'm not going to get into that now. I'll just give an example. So when you're on your phone, and let's say you're looking up shoes, right? And then like a day, 2 days, 3 days later, you get nothing but inundated with ads about shoes. Well, it's not some kind of weird psychic connection. It's these companies seeing the data that you're inputting into it, right? And it says, oh, okay, well, they've sold that data to shoe companies, and then that's when the shoe companies go, okay, we're going to put our advertising directly toward this person to get you to buy shoes. That's basically metadata in a nutshell. And again, there's more scientific. You can do that research on your own. Well, with all those pros and cons, I would say that the future is a brave new world, and the future, again, is now. That said, let me end with my quote, and my quote today is going to be, do not let the fears in your mind push you around, and that is from Roy T. Bennett. I will go ahead and put that, obviously, on the vlog and get you a link to that book as well. Next episode, we're going to talk about the facial recognition and the pros and cons. I don't see a whole lot of pros to it, but again, we'll talk about that next episode. If Skynet does not take over by the next episode, I will see you then. Oh, also, if you want to go ahead and give us comments or reviews on iTunes, that would be fantastic. It would help the show grow and give information to people that may not have heard it or seen it. If you have friends on Facebook you think might like it, please spread along to them the word of my podcast, Robot Crime Blog and Podcast. Thank you, and if Skynet doesn't take over, I will see you next time. Bye.